In November 2013, a woman visited a cemetery in Sao Paulo, Brazil. As she walked past a row of graves, something caught her eye. The dirt on one grave seemed to ripple, almost as if something beneath was moving. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but then she heard it, a faint, desperate gasp. Someone was alive beneath the soil. She ran for help and returned with 2 cemetery workers. Dropping to their knees, they dug frantically, hands clawing at the earth. Slowly, a man's head emerged. Pale, dirt-covered, gasping for air, his eyes wide with terror. He was buried up to his chest, struggling for every breath. Police later reported that the man had been attacked and left for dead. If the woman hadn't been there when she was, he might never have survived. Video footage shows the rescuers carefully clearing the dirt and supporting him as he struggled upright. He was eventually taken to a hospital, treated, and survived. It's a terrifying reminder of how close life and death can be and how fragile human existence is. Walking past a cemetery might seem ordinary, but sometimes what's beneath the ground is anything but. If you saw the ground move like that, what would have been your first instinct? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Picture this, deep underground, the air stale, walls dripping, the weight of the earth pressing in. Now hear it, a low rush that becomes a roar. In March 1906, in the Bonnyvale gold mine of Western Australia, that roar was a wall of floodwater, tearing through the tunnels. A freak storm had dropped almost a year's worth of rain in hours. Miners scrambled for the surface, but Modesto Verichetti was trapped. In minutes, every exit was gone, the water rising fast. His lamp died, and he found himself in total darkness, crouched in a shrinking air pocket. The mine groaned and shifted, every sound whispering the same thing: it's only a matter of time. 5 days passed. No light, no fresh air. Hunger and thirst dug in like claws. Above, rescuers fought to reach him, until a deep-sea diver named Frank Hughes finally descended into the flooded shaft. He couldn't bring Modesto out yet, but he delivered food, candles, and letters from loved ones, just enough to keep him alive. For more days crawled by in that earthen tomb. Then, as the waters receded, Modesto emerged, weak, pale, 9 kilograms lighter, but alive. And that's the image to take with you. 9 days in silence and blackness, the weight of the world pressing down, the ground itself waiting for the moment you can't take another breath. I believe we are beginning to see a pattern here in Brazil, and it just might not be safe to travel there until the entire country gets rid of crime. Now, I don't say that lightly, but when you hear this story, you'll understand why a simple walk past a cemetery can turn into something pulled straight out of a horror movie. It was March 2023, in the small Brazilian city of a municipality I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. A 36-year-old mother of 4 thought her worst day had already happened. She'd been attacked by 2 men over what police believe was a drug-related dispute, not because she was a dealer, but because someone in her family owed the wrong people money.
Just to let us in, and for to go to certain spots, you also had to pay gangs, and then if I want to fly a drone, I'd have to pay a gang member. Certain alleyways I can't film in because I'd have to pay a gang member, or I'd put the gangs at risk of showing what they're actually doing. In a sense, the gangs extort and control every aspect of life here inside of this favela.
The men didn't just beat her. They wanted her gone permanently. So, in a crime as bizarre as it is horrifying, they dragged her to the local cemetery. But instead of killing her outright, they chose a method that is as old as fear itself. They buried her alive. They shoved her into an above-ground stone tomb, the kind meant for coffins, not the living. With her still breathing, they sealed the entrance with bricks and cement, trapping her inside. In total darkness, she was surrounded by the cold smell of concrete and dust, the thick air growing stale with every breath she took. Hours passed. She screamed until her voice cracked, pounded on the walls until her hands were bloody. No one heard until fate stepped in. 2 cemetery workers, going about their daily rounds, noticed something strange. One of the freshly sealed tombs looked out of place, cement still wet, a trail of blood along the edge. And then, the faintest sound. A muffled voice, a human voice. They called the police immediately. Officers arrived, sledgehammers in hand, and smashed through the tomb's entrance. The cement split, brick by brick, until at last the opening gave way, and there she was. She was alive. Shaking so bad, her clothes torn, her skin bruised, her eyes wide with the kind of fear that never fully leaves a person. She had been entombed for around 10 hours with no food, no water, no light. Had she been there another hour or two, oxygen would have run out. Her injuries were severe, her fingers badly damaged, possibly requiring amputation, her body beaten, but she had survived. The attackers were later caught, facing charges for attempted murder. For the people who found her, the rescue was a miracle. But for her, the memory of being buried alive in a real cemetery is a nightmare that will follow her into every dark room, every enclosed space, every night she tries to sleep. Sometimes the monsters in horror films are laughably fake. And then there are nights in Brazil when they are very, very real. Don't forget to like the video, hit subscribe, and stay alert, because if you hear knocking from a tomb, it might not be the Halloween decorations. On a humid June afternoon in Babahoyo, Ecuador, 76-year-old Bella Montoya had been declared dead at the local hospital after what doctors believed was a stroke. Her son, devastated, made arrangements for a traditional wake that same day. By early evening, her body rested in an open coffin, surrounded by family and friends offering their final prayers. But as the hours passed, whispers began to ripple through the mourners. Someone heard a faint thump. Another thought they saw her chest move. Then, a sound no one could ignore, steady, muffled knocking from inside the coffin. The room erupted in shock. Her son and several relatives flung the lid open, revealing Bella struggling to breathe, her eyes fluttering open in the dim light. She was pale, disoriented, but very much alive. The air inside the coffin had grown stale and heavy, and yet she had clung to life with a quiet determination that left even the most stoic among them trembling. They rushed her back to the hospital in the very ambulance that had once carried her lifeless body. Doctors placed her in intensive care, stunned by what they called a rare case of catalepsy, a condition that can mimic death so convincingly it fools even trained professionals. In the days that followed, the small community buzzed with disbelief. For some, it was a miracle. For others, it was a stark reminder of how fragile the barrier between the living and the dead can be. And for Bella Montoya, it was a second chance she never expected, one pulled from the cold edge of the grave itself. On a quiet June morning in 2025, the city of Pilsen in the Czech Republic woke to news that could have easily been a page from a gothic horror novel. An 88-year-old woman, frail but still living with her husband, was found unresponsive in bed. Her husband, heartbroken, called emergency services. Paramedics arrived quickly, but after their examination, they gave the grim announcement no family ever wants to hear: she was gone. A coroner signed the death certificate. Funeral workers were called to the home. Her body was gently placed in a coffin right there in the hallway, the scent of fresh flowers filling the air. The quiet weight of grief hung over the room. For her family, the moment was final. Her life story had ended, or so they believed. Then, just before the coffin lid was to be closed, one of the undertakers noticed something strange. Her chest moved, subtle but unmistakable. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. A second worker leaned in, touching her wrist. There it was, weak, but undeniably present, a pulse. The woman's eyelids flickered. In an instant, the room shifted from sorrow to stunned chaos. The workers shouted for her husband. She was breathing, alive. The coffin was pulled back, and she was carefully lifted out and rushed to a hospital. Medical staff later confirmed she had experienced what is sometimes called the Lazarus effect, a rare and poorly understood phenomenon where a person shows signs of life after being declared clinically dead. In this case, the mistake had nearly cost her everything. Had the undertaker sealed the casket just minutes sooner, She might have awakened in darkness, trapped within her own grave. It was a nightmare avoided only by the smallest twist of fate and the sharp eyes of those present. She remains alive today, her near burial a haunting reminder that the boundary between life and death is not as clear as we often think. Thank you for sticking around until the very end. If you haven't already, please subscribe so we can keep exploring these dark, true tales together.